Hello and hey, today we're messing around with Path of Exile, this time going to be a starter build, or at least the outlines for one, for the upcoming 3.11 Harvest League, which is coming out today by the time this video comes out. This is going to be focused on Warcries and Slams, if the title wasn't any indication of that, and we're going to be focusing on the Berserker Ascendancy. I wanted to go Chieftain originally, we'll get to that in just a bit, but for the Ascendancy points, we're going to go ahead and slap in Aspect of Carnage, Crave the Slaughter, Rite of Ruin, and Wardbringer for a lot of Warcry shenanigans. I was thinking to go Chieftain because of the Forest Strength, kind of fulfill the archetype that they want of one really big attack. When you think of Fist of War, you think of the sort of the mirroring that's going to happen with this, with like Intimidating Cry, Seismic Cry. We could have one huge attack, but when you start to factor in the 40% more damage and 50% more damage of Berserker, basically the 100% more of one attack every 2 seconds, it could go either way. But when you also try to get the 180% of attack damage, increased attack damage from Rage, we're going to be dealing with different beasts here. So that's why I've opted to go with Berserker. That was my line of thinking, and the shenanigans that we're going to be doing with Warcries, like I was trying to say, is going to be the biggest factor of that. So as we look at the tree, it's pretty compact here. And you see I haven't opted for any cluster jewels. That's not because I don't think they're useful. Something like Cry Wolf is going to be incredibly helpful. Maybe even like a Devastator just to get some fun explosions. I have no idea exactly what I would want. They're supposed to be fairly common, the actual jewel drops, although Delirium is not supposed to be as common. So it's just sort of, we'll see how that goes as the league unfolds. Obviously, as a league start video, I don't want to stress that you absolutely need, because the numbers are going to be good enough, I should say, for a league starter. And so as we look at the tree, I do have like 15 passives allocated towards Warcries. We do have, the 4 here, 4 here, 3 here, 3 here, and 1 anointed up here. That is because we are already above 100% Warcry speed and Warcry cooldown recovery speed. Want to make sure I got those right. So the 24% cooldown recovery speed and 15% increased area of effect of the Warcry kind of pale in comparison to the 30% and 30% on this node, not to mention the 20% increased total power counted by Warcries that you also get. So for 5 points, went ahead and saved that. You can obviously anoint anything that you want. This is just sort of a suggestion of where to go. And if you think differently, that's completely fine. Just go ahead and drop something down in the comments. We'll discuss some things. Tell me why I'm terribly wrong and Forest Strength is going to be God mode or anything like that of the sort. But as we kind of want to dive a little bit deeper into why we're taking the ones that we are, the Warcry speed, we are up to 140% Warcry speed, which anything over 100 gets like kind of eaten down with pretty severe diminishing returns. And then we add on to the gem of being at level 20, an additional 38% increased Warcry speed. That's 178% increased, as obviously basic math, but that gets us down to a 0.29 second cast time. I've rounded up on any of these numbers you're going to hear. And if we were going to use something like Urgent Orders, the new support gem for Warcries, we can get it down to 0.24. And the difference there is that it gives us a 2-second addition to the cooldown timer. So that's suboptimal, even though it'll probably just be reduced by our cooldown speed. Just, it's hard to think that that would be worth it. And to give you an example of like how little the increase sort of affects past 100%, if we took out this entire thing, which we probably wouldn't want to do, but if we did, that would only knock us up to a 0.37 used cast time. So it's up to you. Wherever we think that we think it feels best, go ahead and use that as you will, and don't feel bad about taking any points out of the Warcry nodes at all if you plan on using this, because it is going to be a guess for all of us. So as we go ahead and talk about Warcry speed, that's just how that'll feel. We are at 98% cooldown recovery speed, and plus the gem, which it will be 10% at 20 quality, which again gets us on an 8-second cooldown one, like something like a Intimidating Cry or a Seismic Cry. That cooldown will be at 3.85 seconds. So it's that massive reduction, obviously, but once we get past that, we don't need too much more, which is why I was able to cut off, at least in my opinion, 24 more percent, increased percent, sorry, had to use the correct word there. and that sort of thing. And that's just kind of like, you know, the gritty math of it. So if you feel like you want lower or better and all that stuff, because I don't know how it's going to feel. That's the main thing with this build, is we don't know how it's going to feel. You just don't know until you play it. But the basics of the rest of these are obviously we're getting some impale, we're going for some axes, we're getting damage. It's all here. It's there's nothing too crazy. It's a pretty generic build. We're going resolute technique, so we don't have to worry about any accuracy. Even that wouldn't be too big of a problem. Axes do kind of have a little bit of trouble reaching 100%, and we don't want to go any sort of crit because even though they kind of nerfed it, it's not a big deal. We just want to make sure that everything hits, and that'll be good because we have big slow attacks. Just make them all hit, and that's what I want. So as we take a look at the damage number, I see 235,000. I think I probably have something I shouldn't have on. Nope. I don't usually like to leave any clicks, but something seems a little bit high. Sorry, 1 second. I apologize. The adjustable war chief, we'll probably always have one down because the base is 12 seconds, right? But we'll go ahead and turn that off for now so we can see about 200,000. That's the primary wave. Of course, we have 60% coming in the form of the shock waves, which it used to be 40. I'm not even on the wrong page here. It deals 60% less damage. Now it deals 40% less damage, but it can only hit up to 5 targets on a single sunder. And that will be an additional 120,000 average damage. So it's just sort of 320. It's not very good, but it's also 4-link. So we're not doing too bad. For someone that we're only level 88. We don't have like any gear whatsoever on. I haven't tried to opt for anything crazy here. Just wanted to show off like just base skills, how we're going to be probably just fine, especially when we start thinking about all the different cries that are going to go into effect. But just want to show off just exactly what I'm doing here. We have a level 40 conk effect to kind of show off what Fist of War will do. It's 69% more area damage. The Fist of War is 148 every 1.8 seconds. So it's kind of close, that number, but I don't want to pay attention like too like ingrained into the math like I did for the cooldown and speed of Warcries. I want to leave this a little bit open-ended. You can find out for yourself, but we would also shove in General's Cry here because we want to spawn the Mirage Warriors and get whatever number this ends up being times 5, but only take 70% of that because they do 30% less damage. Anyway, so as we click over to the War Chief, we can throw him on if we want. Multiple totems was kind of a leftover from the Chieftain, like I had here written down. I kind of wanted to go some kind of crazy Chieftain build on top of this, but it'd probably be too many buttons to press just to get our normal damage down. So we can probably go ahead and take this out, which I've already disabled and thought I had enough. The auras that we want to go for are going to be Pride. So we don't want that. That's why it's a little high. There we go. Pride, Flesh and Stone with Maim, and Blood and Sand. War Banner, if we can fit it, if we can get an Enlighten at some point to give us just enough mana to kind of do the rest of our skills, this would be optimal. Dread Banner technically is a little bit more damage because of the Impale effect, and it would basically guarantee every attack impales. It's because we attack a little bit slow, we'll probably be killing things a lot quicker other than bosses. The Adrenaline might be a little bit better suited to burst down a boss, because with the exception of maybe like a Cirrus fight that's going to last a long time, a Shaper fight, these sorts of things, maybe then go Dread Banner, but kind of situational at best for War Banner. The next one, we're going to use the Guard skill. I think we're going to go Steel Skin, which feels really weird. But just because, Vol Molten Shell got touched up a little bit, it deserved to be. But we're going to have a hard time getting to armor levels that would get us to this 2200 damage of buff that gets taken. So Immortal Call might be something if we were going to go for Endurance Charges with the Chieftain or something like that. But just not even thinking about it, just slapped on Steel Skin. I think it'll be fine, especially just, the first couple of days of the league. And then we want to have Desecrate and Spell Cascade for General's Cry corpses to get that power up. It shouldn't matter the level of these gems because the power is based off the rarity, and I think we can only ever spawn white mobs, so it'll only ever just be a plus 10, but 10 is a lot. We can get 4 Mirage Warriors just off of that if we drop it down. It's possible that we won't need this. It sounds kind of dumb, but just the way that it works, if you're going to go into a room where there aren't any enemies that have already been fighting you, then obviously you're going to need this. So that's why we have it listed right here, and it'll feel like another skill you have to use. So you're going to have a lot of buttons, like a lot of buttons. Moving over to the movement skill, we have Dash on a second wind. If we could find the links, I would probably want that as well with Blood Magic. That way we could actually get down to, using War Banner or something like that, get a little more damage, that sort of thing. And of course, Berserk we want for the Rage in case we really want to just go executing things. It's a nice luxury to have, especially when we're starting at like 60 Rage, which we're going to from the tree. And the cries that we're going to be using are obviously not 3 Enduring Cries, but an Intimidating Cry, Seismic Cry, and an Enduring Cry. The Enduring Cry is just kind of because we can, right? We're investing so heavily into Warcries. We have the ability to get to the 1,976 health regen in a second. And I believe we have at least 30% effect. Maybe we are up to 45 or 60, but an extra 300, 600 health, an extra 600 health is going to be more than welcome if we just need it and want it, because the defenses that I've gone for are they're a little light. They're a little light for Berserker, so I just wanted to kind of show off some damage numbers, and that's where we're at. But because we can empower each exerted attack with multiple war cries, I wanted to have as many as I could. Intimidating and Seismic can overlap if it's a slam, and because General's Cry is always an exerted attack, it kind of really starts to add up big time. So that's what we've gone for, that particular way of going. And then for the items, like I said, I have nothing going on here. I've chosen this as a just stand-in because attacks have blood magic, and that's basically the only reason. It also got a slight change coming in 3.11 that it gives you like big attack speed if you've taken a savage hit, which is probably the only thing that'll like get us low in the first place. So maybe it comes in handy at some point. We just have a regular Starkonias. We've got the allocated deep breaths. We're probably going to want the turquoise amulet for the dexterity and intelligence because we do have slight requirements that we need to hit. And a Lion's Roar is going to be expensive this league. Again, like 3.7 prices, I assume. But, of course, it'll give us, that's like 20 to 25% more physical damage. So it's going to be exactly what we are in the mood for. But other than that, I didn't want to go too crazy on this because I don't expect people to have great gear, and this is just starter build. And because everything's so new, the things that are probably going to change, if you've gotten to this point, this video, and you're like well into the league, it's going to be like irrelevant to you anyway. So just one of those things. Just wanted to show off a very, very basic skeleton, if you will, for a build. And this is going to be maybe what I end up using for the league start myself. And I've also included, for your viewing pleasure, a backup if I go into a dual wielding double strike character, which depends how good Warcries feel. Maybe it might just go into flawless savagery for that. I just want to have a backup just in case it doesn't go how fun that I think it might be. I'm just kind of playing the game. So this is just, I've included a backup tree, and that's just something you can look at if you want to. But for the most part, I've rambled on too long, and I didn't even get to show any gameplay because everything's too new. But as always, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Be safe, guys.